still on my first bobbin here, and the goal with this is to fill as many bobbins to the halfway point as I can. And you can see it actually more easily on this side. If it won't focus on my finger, you can see there's a notch here. And that little notch shows when the bobbin is about halfway full. And we've approached that here on this side. You can kind of see that notch is right here. So I think now I'm going to have everything come to about this level. So I figured as well, while I'm here, while I'm recording, while the sun is actually out, I should chat with you a little more, give you some updates about how I'm feeling about the fiber and my spinner. So first of all, I think I'll talk about the machine first, actually. So this is, let me see if I can pick it up without breaking the yarn. This is the Electric Eel Wheel 6.1, I believe, from Dreaming Robots. And I love it. I really love it. It was the cheapest e-wheel I was able to find that wasn't miniature. And that's actually why I bought it, because it was the cheapest one I was able to find. But I do know that it's a pretty popular one. I know Airy Knits has this, or she has another electric eel wheel. It might not be the 6.1 version, but I know that she has an electric eel wheel. You can see it in the back of her videos, and she spins a lot. So that made me feel good about making this choice. I did good reviews. It seemed to be really good value for the money. And the really popular one is it's like Kingsford, something like that. Ashford, it might be Ashford. I think I have an Ashford Nitty Naughty. But that one is like $800, and a spinning wheel is like $1,200. So it's like, at that rate, I feel like I might as well get a spinning wheel. But this one is $300, just about, to give you the estimate. It's about $300, I think. I got the Lazy Kate as well. I think altogether it was like $300. And I really like it. I really like it, aside from a couple of very minor things, which are, I think, two of them are, I think, symptoms of the fact that it's the most inexpensive electric wheel that I could find. And the other one is, I think, completely unavoidable. And the unavoidable one is, if you can see here, this tensioner, this is not the original tensioner. I have broken 4 of them. Because what happens is, you have this bit of yarn or rope or whatever you've got that lays over top of the bobbin while the bobbin is spinning its point. And let me unplug it so I can actually show you. And it lays over the top of the bobbin while the bobbin is spinning. And that's to tension it so that you can choose how tightly the spin wraps around your bobbin. And because of that, this fiber is receiving a ton of friction from the bobbin, and so after a long spin, it breaks, or it can break. And they send you 2 in the box. I broke both of them, and then I replaced it with some fingering weight cotton yarn. That broke in a couple of hours. And then I replaced it with some acrylic because I thought that the plastic would make it more durable. That broke within about 15 minutes. And so I've switched it now. I'm using, this is I think like Sugar and Cream. It's worsted weight kitchen cotton that I've doubled up. And this is a yarn that I cannot physically break with my hands. I can't do it. And I can break anything with my hands, and I can't do this. So it's yarn that's very durable, and I've doubled it up. So I think that it should be fine. I've been able to spin for a couple of hours so far with it like this across different sessions, and it's been fine. But yeah, it's a little inconvenient, but I think it's unavoidable, and it is very easy to replace because you can just grab some kitchen cotton from your stash and it's fine. The other 2 things are, one is really minor, and that's that the foot pedal doesn't always work. Sometimes it just doesn't turn the machine on or off. It just doesn't feel like it. But usually if you tap it a couple more times, it'll work. But sometimes it takes a couple taps for it to work, which is fine. And if it really bothers me, I can probably just get a replacement foot pedal. And the other thing is, and the reason why I have it on, this is my mouse pad that I have it sitting on here. I don't know if, here, this is the corner that you can see. I have it sitting on my mouse pad because this machine is very light, but it spins very fast, which means that when it spins, if it's on anything, it goes from 0 to 6, and when it's on anything above 2.5, and I usually set it to 3, right now I've got it on 4.5, it shakes, and that means that it moves, and it makes a lot of noise. Not great. So that's the one thing that I would say is fixable, honestly. I think that could be fixed by either putting 3 feet on it instead of 4, or by just making the whole bottom just one silicone mat instead of putting it on feet at all, or by just making the base a lot heavier. Those things I think could be fixed in a later version of the machine, but it's not really a big deal. And again, I've just set it on a mouse pad and it's completely fixed the problem. So overall, I really like it. I'm really fond of it. And I think if you're interested in an electric winder, or not winder, electric wheel. I would recommend this one, but I would say if you don't know how to spin yet, I would still recommend using a drop spindle or a supported spindle first. Which that's my feedback, not as an expert, but as a beginner. Like I can tell you, I would not have been able to figure this fucking thing out. If I well, I would have been able to figure it out, but I would not have been successful or confident with my spins at all if this was the first thing that I used. It's a little scary. And with a drop spindle or a supported spindle, you have a lot of control over your spin. So if you don't know how to spin yet and you're interested, I would still recommend using one of those first. From someone who is still a beginner, I would still probably recommend those first. But like this didn't take long. Like I've been spinning for like what 3 months now, and I'm pretty comfortable with this now. So yeah. Then the fiber, I'm using Shetland wool. I think I introduced the fiber in the last segment. I think I gave a nice spiel about it. I originally wasn't going to buy the full pound. I was originally going to just buy 4 ounces and test it out. And I was like, why not just buy it all? And I did, and it's very unlike anything I've ever spun before. It is super different. I've grabbed a mask. In the previous clips, I was not wearing a mask to spin this. But I've been coughing after spinning since I started the spin, and there's hair. Excuse me. All over my desk. I have my drink covered. I have a silicone. This is on top of my water, so there's no hair gets in it. Because this sheds like crazy. It sheds a lot. So if you're gonna spin a really hairy fiber like this and you never have, you might want to grab a mask, because I feel like I'm inhaling a lot of this, and it's just scratchy in my throat. But it's beautiful. It spins so nicely. It doesn't have the resistance that the softer fibers. It's not soft. It's not soft. But it doesn't have the same resistance that the softer fibers, like Merino, Shanico, and Rambouillet that I've used are. It feels a lot more like Corriedale, which is I think another one of my favorites. Probably I think my favorites so far are Rambouillet and Corriedale. But Merino in particular, it really sticks to itself, and this just does not. Which means there's very little resistance when you're spinning, which I wasn't expecting. I was expecting a rustic fiber like this to be really sticky. It's not at all. It is very loose, which makes it pretty comfortable to spin, actually. Like once you get over the fact that like it feels like the spin is going to break at any moment because it just drafts so easily. But the unfortunate thing is the spin kind of can break at any moment unless you're spinning like rope. Which means I've had some occurrences where the spin, it breaks once and then it just keeps breaking over and over, which gets really frustrating, but I've been doing okay. And so far I think I have about 100 grams on here. I measured it the other night when I had the whole bobbin. The whole bobbin was at about this level. So now I've got some more here and some more here. I measured it when it was all level like this, and I had 90 grams of it, not including the weight of the bobbin. So I think I should probably I could have as much as 150 grams when the bobbin is full to 50% capacity, which is what I'm going for. Which means that because I have 450 grams of yarn, that's only going to be 3 bobbins. So I'm not really sure how I'm going to divide that, but it's looking okay. So, I'm probably not going to give a bunch of updates like over the course of it because I've just been talking so long and like there's not much to say. Like once I'm spinning, it's like, yeah, I'm spinning. I'll give you updates when I hit another milestone, which might not be for honestly a couple of weeks. But yeah. Bye. About 9:30 on Saturday the 7th, and I have some updates about my spin. I had a specific plan for how to go about the plying process of this. What I thought that I was going to do was spin all of my bobbins and then ply the first and fourth bobbin and the second and third bobbin. Well, I was measuring my bobbins. I'm currently on the third bobbin, and I had gotten to a certain point with it, and I was like, okay, I'm out of the fiber that I had set aside for this bobbin. So I want to measure it. I want to measure it, see how much spin I actually have, and compare it to the other bobbins to see where I can maybe even things out. And I decided to take some spin from the second bobbin and give it to the third, so that overall be more even. Because my second bobbin for some reason was way overfilled. Um, and as I was taking spin off of the second bobbin, I realized, oh, this yarn has no energy left in it. Let me show you. So you would have seen in some previous clips that I did a plyback test where I just I pulled a bit out and the yarn twisted on itself. And that's what's supposed to happen. Like when it's fresh off the spinner. And look at this. It's like dead. It is like sad and dead, and no doubt the first is even more sad and limp. And it plies back a little once you get a lot of length out, but that looks quite sad and not fantastic. And I know because I saw a great Jillian Eve video about this concept of letting your bobbins rest, like whether you should do it and what benefit it has. And in that video, she basically showed how, while yes, letting your bobbins rest for a long time can cause your spin to kind of go limp, once you get those plies wet again, they're going to regain their energy. So that leads me to believe that once I've got it all plied up and blocked and everything, it's going to be back to where I want it to be. I also don't want to make this rest longer than it has to. And I'm done. I have two or this is three, this is two. So I actually think that I'm gonna apply these right now. I think I'm gonna apply them right now and see what happens. Again, this latest bobbin is going to have a little too much energy, but I do feel like two has a little less energy than I would like. And the first bobbin undoubtedly has none at this point, which makes me a little nervous. But it's gonna be okay. I'm gonna apply these and I will let you know how it goes. I did it. I've plied the first two bobbins. I'm a little skeptical. I think it's well, too thick is a bit of a strong phrase for it. I do think it's thicker than I intended, really is the truth. But I've spun up bobbins here. I'm going to measure how much this is using my Nitty Naughty. I'm going to wrap it around, count the wraps to see how much yardage I have. And then I'm going to measure that or weigh that skein to see how many grams this is. It should be about 220 grams, 210, 220 grams. But I also have, let me get it. I actually have some spin left over. This is a not completely insignificant amount of spin from, I want to say this is from bobbin number 2. Yeah, this is not bobbin number 3. This is bobbin number 2. So what I don't think that I'm going to do is I'm probably going to just take this length that I already have, pop it back on the wheel, and continue spinning up basically bobbin number 4 from this. So yeah, I'll let you know how this goes. I have successfully skeined up the spin. Look at that. How beautiful is that? So I had to divide it into 2 skeins because the yarn broke, is what it is. But right here I have 194 grams or 520 yards of yarn, and I did the math, and that would roughly put it at like a sport weight. It gives me 268 yards per 100 grams. So that is like a light sport weight, which is exactly what I wanted. And this is such an interesting feeling yarn. It feels very much like Norwegian wool. So it's really lanolin rich, so it doesn't feel hard on the hands because it's full of that oil, but it's very rustic. So yeah, look at that. Hi, it is Tuesday, December 17th, I've had a fantastic day today, and I'm currently plying. Ignore my laundry. Oopsie. I'm currently plying the very, very last of my sweater spin. Once this is all plied, it's done. Remember how earlier I was like, that tensioning rope, it's prone to breaking. So she broke again. While I had the machine, this is really weird to show you in the selfie camera. I had the machine on maximum speed. Sorry, I'm using my front camera, so this is really weird. And it doesn't stop immediately. Especially when it's that, I'm sorry, I can't hold this in a way where you can't see anything. Especially when you're going that fast, it doesn't stop immediately. It takes a second. Well, that's where I'm at right now. Oh, it's fine. I can fix it. I'm not mad. It happens. I would be very mad if I didn't have such a good day today. It's the end of the day. I just got home from a date. It went great. It was awesome. I don't think my boyfriend watches these, but it's like I had a really good day today. If I didn't, I would be very upset right now. But it's fine. It's fine. I can fix it. It's just, shit happens. It's gonna be alright. It's gonna be alright. This is going to sound silly, but look. They've stopped at the exact same spot. I'm not gonna have any leftovers. I've never had that happen. Alright, there it is. It is all done. I gotta weigh it out, but there it is. It is 5 o'clock, so you can see it's getting dark. And it's all skeined up. This was 423 wraps around my 5-foot nitty naughty, which I did the math, and that's 705 yards. And this is just under 250 grams. It's 248 grams of yarn. I did the math and figured out that is equivalent to 284 yards in a 100-gram skein, which means this is roughly like a sport or DK weight. So it's pretty similar to the other two skeins I did. I think the other two skeins I did were like 270 or something. So this is a little lighter, but I was really worried because I was plying it up and I was like, oh, this looks like fingering weight. That's not gonna work, and that's way lighter than the other yarn. But it's not that, I mean, it's a little bit lighter, but it's not that much lighter. So I'm gonna go block this, and it'll probably bloom to be even plumper, and I do think it's gonna work. Okay, good morning. Hi, today is December 22nd. I don't know, like, how much time has passed in relation to the last clip, because I've not been spinning. Well, I'm done spinning, which I'll show you. But I have literally just been doing schoolwork, like, all day, every day for the past week. It's like just been a nonstop chemistry for the past week. But I'm done now. I'm free until the new year. But I did end up finishing the absolute last of the batch. So this is the final skein. It's, I think, pretty much exactly 200 grams. I did the math somewhere. It's on my Ravelry. If I remember to do it, I'll put the exact stats up on screen, because it's going to have, like I'll just screenshot the page, and it's going to have, like, the exact weight in grams, the exact yardage, all of that stuff. But it is done. And I actually think I made a little bit of a mistake. So, I don't remember if I told you, I think I did, that I was watching Knitting with Ev when she did her first garment spin. She discussed a concept in that video that she had learned elsewhere, that when you're doing a large spin, instead, like when you're plying on several bobbins, right, instead of plying the first bobbin with the second bobbin, the third bobbin with the fourth bobbin, the fifth bobbin with the sixth bobbin, etc., you should spin them all, and then ply the extreme ends together as you get closer and closer to the middle. because that, in theory, is going to give you the most even ply. Because like in theory, you're going to start, your first spin is going to be the most uneven and the farthest from your goal thickness, and the more and more you spin, the closer you're going to get to that goal that you have. I don't think that's how I spun. I think I actually think that my second and third bobbins were both the most even and the most accurate to size, and my first and final bobbins were both the most thin and the most, because I default to spinning like as thin as I can get it, basically, which is not uncommon for beginners. Like once you get past the point of every spin being jumbo, and you start being able to spin fine, it's really hard to get out of that, um, and to start spinning a little bit thicker. And the goal for this was a sport or DK weight, and I have achieved that, but this last skein is definitely a lot thinner, and I believe it's also more uneven. Um, but it's fine. It's okay. And I've decided. Sorry. Oh, hang on. I gotta go. Hang on. Answer the phone. Sorry. um, I'm kind of forgetting where I was at. I'm probably holding this. There we go. I'm kind of forgetting where I was at, but TLDR, because this one is kind of uneven, and because this is actually the biggest skein, I think I have a total of 200 grams from the other skein, the other two skeins from the first spin, and then, because I had to break it up in two skeins. And then I think in this skein I've got like 250 grams. I think. I might be wrong. I might be a little off, but I think that's pretty much what it is. Which means I have slightly more yarn in this skein, and also because it's the most like uneven and kind of the thinnest, it's what I'm going to do my gauge swatch with, because I would rather, you know, I would rather do the gauge swatch with, first of all, the yarn that I have the largest amount of, and also the stuff that is kind of the thinnest, because I would rather like take into account statistics for the thinner strands of yarn, and then when I switch to the slightly thicker strand, get something a little bit bigger, than calculate my measurements based on the thicker strand, and then do everything based on that thicker strand, and then when I have to switch to the thinner strand, if everything gets smaller. You know what I mean? So that's what I'm gonna do. Or I could also do helical knitting, which I don't like doing. I absolutely hate helical knitting. I don't know how anyone does it. I hate it. But if it seems like an extreme difference, I might need to. We'll see. So yeah, I just wanted to check in, let you know that sorry, my dog is in here. Let you know that I've got this done. The whole sweater spin is complete. I'll pop up, I did take a picture. I'll pop up a picture of what it all looks like together. But yeah, I'm about to wind this into a cake and knit my gauge swatch. Okay, I'm still in kind of a chatty mood. I did take my hoodie off. It's cold. It's like 33 right now, and I have my window open, and I have my fan on, but the heat is also on, and even when I have the vent closed, it still gets really hot in here. And I've been doing stuff, you know, and I'm hot-natured. It is what it is. Anyway, I'm in a chatty mood still. And what I think is interesting, so I'm looking at my spin, I'm like, geez, this is like, it's really pretty. It looks really nice, and like, this is usable yarn. And I've made enough of it to knit an entire full-size sweater. How crazy is that? Because I learned to spin only in July or August, I think. And that was on a drop spindle. And I didn't learn how to use the e-spinning wheel. I'm sorry if you can hear my dog. He's licking his feet. I only learned how to use the e-wheel, I want to say September or October. So I have not been spinning for a long time. And like, for these videos, even if you've been watching since the very first video, I've been on my spinning journey for almost the entirety of my presence on this channel. Because I think like in my first video I couldn't spin yet, and by the second video like I had purchased the drop spindle and my first fiber, and by the time that that video was edited and uploaded and visible, I had already started to learn to spin. So I've been spinning for, you know, my entire channel presence. But I've been knitting and crocheting. I've been knitting for coming up on 6 years this summer. Like this coming summer, it's going to be 6 years that I've been knitting. And I think 5 or 4 years that I've been crocheting. I can't remember. I think I learned to crochet in like the end of 2020, like October 2020. Um, yeah, I've had a much longer overall crafting journey, but I do think it's interesting that like should I maintain this channel for an extended period of time, which I hope to, unless life significantly gets in the way, but I hope to be able to maintain it for long term, like indefinitely. Spinning will be a significant part of the identity of this channel because yeah, like I've been spinning basically as long as I've had this, but the spinning itself is so brand new to me. It's just so interesting, and it's so interesting to me as well how quickly you can first of all take to a hobby or a skill. You can actually, oh my gosh, you can see the fibers. Oops, I'm done. Whoa. Okay, I'll show you this in a second. That is huge. I find it so interesting. First of all, how quickly you can take to a hobby, how quickly you can get good at it, and how quickly it can just take over your life. Because I quite distinctly remember when I was buying my first spindle, it was at the Charlotte Fiber Market. I cannot remember the specific name of it. But when I was there, I was speaking to a vendor called Blue Cat Bobbins, and I was like, yeah, I want to learn to spin, but I don't know that I'm going to become like a spinner. I don't know how seriously it's going to take to my crafting life. And he was like, that is what everyone says, and everyone gets proven wrong. And he was right. So here's, look at this cake. It's got a huge hole in the middle because this yarn, what is this? This is Shetland. It really looks like fingering weight. It looks like fingering weight. It, I don't know. I think I just spun it kind of densely because it's got the wraps per inch of fingering weight, but it has the weight to length ratio of fingering or of sport, I'm sorry. But I don't feel like I spun it too densely because it's not ropey at all. But what I was trying to say is you're still licking yourself. What I was going to say is this fiber is very it's not drapey. It doesn't really have any drape, so that hole is just going to very slowly close up on itself. Whereas if this was like merino, it would just shut immediately, like as soon as I took it off. Anyway, I'm going to get swatching with this. Okay, I don't know if you guys saw in a previous clip, but if it's a clip that I didn't decide to discard, you might have heard me go ow randomly. Apparently I sliced myself on my ball winder. I don't know what on the winder is sharp, but it's fine. Anyway, what I actually wanted to say in these clips is that the sweater that I'm intending to knit is Grist by Jared Flood. Now, Grist is an all-over textured pattern. Oof. Being bandaged makes working with your hands kind of hard. It's an all-over textured pattern, and in order to get the gauge right, they want you to swatch in pattern. But they don't tell you what the pattern is. Like, you just have to reverse engineer it, I guess. Or you have to buy the pattern. Which I would, I understand why they don't just, like, tell you what the texture is, because then you could theoretically create the same sweater without buying the pattern, and they want you to buy the pattern. Even then, I think if you want to do the work to create the sweater yourself and grade it for your size yourself without buying the pattern, I think that's fine, because in my opinion, the reason you buy a pattern is for the instructions. You're not buying the rights to a design, you're buying the instructions, so you don't have to grade it yourself. But that's kind of a hot take. But, I understand, like, it's a business. I understand why they don't want to just give it out. But it's a $15 pattern. And I don't want to buy a $15 pattern just to get the swatch information, because what if I don't like how it looks? Like, what if I don't like how this yarn looks in that texture? I pulled out way too much yarn for this long toe cast on. Like, what if I don't like how it looks, right? So right now, I am simply doing my best to figure out what the hell he did to get the texture, and they don't even let you zoom in on the pictures on the website. Like, they're savvy. So I have to look at it and, like, I know because it says in the pattern that the chest is 1x1 rib. It's not, it looks like brioche, but it's just 1x1 ribbing. And then it's like the knit purl texture, but there's like a row of purl bumps, a couple rows of knits, a couple rows of purl bumps, a couple rows of knits, a couple rows of purl bumps, a couple rows of knits. It looks like one row of purl bumps and then 1x1 rib, and then alternating purl and knit, and then what looks like a broken 2x2 rib, and this one looks like there's yarn overs in the front. Like, it's funky. Um, and I'm just gonna have to do my best, but I figure, like, as long as I can get it close, like, as long as I can come up with an approximation of the proper texture. God, this really hurts my pinky. Because I don't have any band-aids, so I had to just tissues and tape. But it is like, I hate that, because your pinky's so little, and it's kind of right on the fold, so it makes it tough to just to curl my pinky inward. Anyway, yeah, I have to kind of reverse engineer it a little bit, but as I was saying, I think as long as I can get an approximation of the texture, as long as I get close to it, I think it'll still give me the right idea, and and should be fine. Y'all, I am so confused about the weight of this yarn because it looked so thin, like it looked like it was fingering weight, but I've measured my gauge and I'm getting a 20 stitch gauge, and the pattern suggests a 26 stitch gauge, and I'm using a size smaller needle than they suggest. So, like, I'm switching to an even smaller needle. This is 3.5, this is 3.25. The pattern suggests 3.75. And because I mean, it's okay if my gauge is oversized, because then I could just knit one of the smaller sizes and I'll have less knitting to do. Bailey, what are you doing? But this yarn is endlessly confusing me, because it has the wraps per inch of a fingering weight, the weight to length ratio of a sport weight, but the gauge I'm getting is the gauge I normally get with DK. So I don't know what is going on with this yarn. But honestly, like, 26 stitches in 4 inches is pretty tight, you know, for sport. Like, that's a fingering, like, that's the kind of gauge that I would normally get with fingering weight. For sport weight, I usually get anywhere from 22 to 24 stitches in 4 inches. So it seems like a quite tight gauge, but if you look at the finished object photos, both on the Grist sample, and I'm currently on Ravelry, because on Ravelry you can zoom in on people's pictures. Like, I'm on the People's Ravelry project pages, because I can zoom in and see the texture better to replicate it on my swatch. And most of their fabric looks really, really dense, which is great for, you know, for what am I trying to say? It helps with the stitch definition, and it makes all of the texture, especially with like the ribbing elements, it helps it look a lot cleaner. So I might need to go way down. I'm using a 3.25 right now. I'm gonna do a couple more repeats with this, and if it still seems too big or too loose, I might go all the way down to a 3mm, which sounds deranged, but I do think that with this yarn, because I was showing you how, like, there's a ton of, look at all the light that can pass through the fabric in the lower rounds, but it doesn't feel drapey. So I think, like, if it's not going to be drapey anyway, it might be helpful to just go way down and create a dense fabric. This is going to be an outer piece for me anyway, because it's Shetland, which is not soft at all. It's really rustic, and I'm a sensitive skinned individual. So it's going to be outerwear, which means I think it's going to be fine if it's dense. But yeah, it's like, especially with areas like the ribbing, oh, it's quite hard to show you. Is that going to be easier? No, it's tough to show you with the lighting that I've got. But like, yeah, like the ribbing in a lot of areas looks really gapey and just not very good. So it might be really helpful to go way down on the needle size. I don't know. I'll see. Okay, so I have an update. The swatch is done. Yeah, let me put it against me so you can see it. And I really like the way, especially at a distance, I think this looks great in texture. The problem that I'm having is I just don't really like how the ribbing looks because the yarn, it's hard to show you on, because I think on camera it looks fine, but in person the ribbing is really gapey. Even when I went down to a smaller needle size, the ribbing just looks really gapey and not very clean. And the issue with Grist is that it's a ton of ribbing. So I don't really know. Like, maybe I just need to go down even smaller because my gauge is still oversized. Let me actually, you know what? Let me check not Etsy. Let me check Ravelry to make sure that on the Ravelry page it has that 26 stitch gauge. Yeah, it does. It says 26 stitches, and even with the smaller needle, I'm getting 24 stitches to the inch, and that's before blocking. So it might be worth it to go all the way down to a 3mm, but then I'm worried that I'm not gonna have enough yardage. So yeah, I'm not really sure. But I like how the stockinette looks. I think the stockinette looks really nice. I think this is garter stitch. I think the garter stitch looks great. And I like the reverse side stockinette as well. So I'm not really sure. There's a pattern from Ozetta it's too chunky. It's knitted like a heavy DK or a worsted weight, but it's called the clay sweater, and it's stockinette with like garter stripes. And something like that could work. I don't know, like I like the overall look of this, particularly from a distance. It's just the ribbing is not my favorite, and the whole upper body is ribbed. You know, the entire upper body is ribbing, and in the samples they use what looks like a very round yarn. It's probably a 3 or a 4 ply, and I'm almost certain that it's woolen spun as well, so it's like a really round yarn, and it makes that ribbing look really, really, really nice. And it just like doesn't look super nice in this swatch. So I'm gonna go ahead and block this. There's no reason why I need to cast on right this second. But I am going to go ahead and just give this a block and consider my options as it's drying. We've got some really unusual harsh lighting going on right now, but it's some hours later, and I have my swatch. This is fully blocked and mostly dry. It's like a little damp, but not really, which is one thing that I like about rustic yarn, is that it dries really easily. So this part, you can see I use the bigger needle, that's where I use the smaller needle. The section with the larger 3.5mm needle actually grew more, which is interesting to me. But yeah, so there you can kind of see, hopefully it's not too harsh of a lighting situation. There it is. I like the texture, but I also really like the just plain stockinette. And the grist pullover is very texture heavy with almost no stockinette in the whole thing. There's really small strips of it, but not enough where you can really see and appreciate that fabric. So I'm not sure yet, because I do like the texture, and I do like this varied texture. Pardon me, I know there's some knitting patterns that just have like bands of Pearl Ridge stripes, but I would like to do some varied texture like this, but with more stockinette, maybe not so much ribbing, because I don't love how the ribbing looks. Yeah, I don't know. I don't hate it. I don't adore it either. So I'm going to have to see. But this video is not dedicated to the garment itself. This video is dedicated to the yarn. So hold on, it's right up here. Let me grab the full quantity. Here it is. And so with all of that and the swatch, that kind of concludes the you know, the spinning part of this journey. And I'm going to be creating a separate vlog to cover the actual knitting part. I honestly want to cast on tonight. But I'm just not sure if grist is the right pattern for this yarn yet. I'm just not sure. I don't know. And I don't want to jump into it and pick the wrong pattern. So I'll deal with that. But for now, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you had a good time. And if I inspired you to step out of your comfort zone with spinning or thinning or anything like that, please let me know. I love hearing from you. And yeah, I will keep you updated in the next video. No idea when that's gonna come out. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.